Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Now, have you ever wondered what it takes to be that perfect leader in 2023? Are you ready to take the step and reinvent your leadership style? Well, today, my guest co-host, Roger Jowett, former Motion Asia Pacific CEO and current Brainiact mascot franchise partner, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Sharon Williams. Sharon is the founder and CEO of Taurus Marketing, one of Australia's longest established integrated marketing and PR agencies. Sharon has delivered solutions for over 1,800 brands across 6 continents and is here today to teach us all how to become brilliant leaders in 2023 and the importance of personal brand. Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And look, Sharon, we always start our show with 2 fun questions that we ask our guests. So the first one we have for you is, what's the most adventurous thing you've ever done or perhaps would like to do?
I think probably the most adventurous thing I've ever done was going to London, where I was born and brought up, with my new husband, and buying 2 rucksacks and renting out our flat in London and saying, family, we'll see you in a year. And we went around the world. I think that was probably the most adventurous thing I ever did. And by the way, I never got home. 28 years later, we're still traveling.
Oh, how fantastic is that? And what about the second one? If you could only eat one type of food for the rest of your life, only one, what would that food be?
Yeah, well, I had to weigh up between steak and ice cream. And I first thought I should say veggies, but I think I'll settle with steak.
Steak, wow, over ice cream.
I don't think you can beat a decent steak.
Definitely. And look, Sharon, at the very beginning, I gave a bit of an intro to you, but there is so much more to Sharon and your career and Taurus Marketing. Can you please share with our audience a bit more about yourself and your career and your business?
Oh, thank you, Natalie. Well, I'm the daughter of a builder, an entrepreneur, and of a mother who worked from before I was born, who was in recruitment and HR and personnel. And I'm the granddaughter of my grandmother and my great aunt, who founded a school. So I was actually brought up next door to a school where my great aunt was the headmistress and my grandma was the deputy headmistress. So I think I've been surrounded by powerful women. And I was born and brought up in London, went to that school that my parents founded, and then always wanted to either be in the Navy as a Wren. Back in those days, you could only be a writer Wren or a secretary or a radar Wren. Turned down university and ended up taking up a job with Marks and Spencer's, which was the retail store in London, for their management training. And I started that and then failed shortly. About a year later, I think I was asked to leave because I was too disruptive, and ended up doing some very exciting things for a short time and traveling, and then ended up in an IT company working for an entrepreneur. And really that's where I settled in marketing, and stayed there for probably 8 years through England, Hong Kong, and Sydney before I then started my own business.
Wow, fantastic. And Taurus Marketing, that's been around for how long now, Sharon?
Yes, well, as old as my first daughter, Charlotte, who's 28. And when I fell pregnant here in Sydney in 1995, my boss there, and bearing in mind I'd worked for the company globally for 6-7 years, maybe more than that, 8 years, said, "Oh, well, you'll be off then, won't you?" Because I was pregnant, had that sin of being a married woman, but having become pregnant. And that was when I heard from the competitor of that company, Peter Kazakos, who was running the Kaz Group, which was an IT company. And he rang me and said, "Would you like to come and work for me?" So I waddled in 9 months pregnant and said hi to him, and then pushed Charlotte back in a pram 2 weeks later and said, "I'm here." And it's based on that relationship with him that I registered Taurus marketing on the day Charlotte was born. And then working with Peter, and he referred me into other tech firms. Taurus grew and grew to the point it's still going today, 28 years later.
That's fantastic. What a great story. And, the topic that we're bringing today is something really different, the reinvention of the new leader in 2023. We know businesses are changing, they're evolving. It's a tough landscape at the moment. The qualities that a leader needs in 2023, Sharon, what do you think are these qualities? Are they different to even last year of what we're looking for in today's leaders?
Well, I think it's very, very worthwhile noting that the leaders of large companies, the largest companies, may be slightly different to our businesses, which tend to be the SME businesses, where we haven't got the infrastructure and we haven't got the corporate regulations of much larger businesses. So I'd have to say that leadership of us as SMEs has to change continually and be reinvented. I mean, the pandemic, a 1 in 100-year event, certainly put us through our paces as leaders. And the characteristics of leadership, I think, have evolve as the world and the globe evolves and where we're at with our businesses. And certainly at the moment, it has to be tenacity, resilience, the ability to just keep going when you feel like giving up, the ability to deal with whatever's going to hit next. The pandemic showed us that. The global financial crisis showed us that 14, 15 years ago. Certainly as small business owners, we have health hit us hard. I mean, I've had 3 cancer diagnoses since I've been running Taurus. You've got marriage, you've got divorce, you've got births, you've got health, you've got cash flow, you've got banks, you've got people problems, or people challenges, should I say. You've got the issue of having one big customer and not a variety of customers. I think for all of those reasons, what we need to do is love what we do, so it doesn't feel like work, and then want to keep it going and hold on to it and fight for it more than anything.
Yeah.
And Sharon, what are your sort of tips if somebody's there looking in the mirror and saying, I've got to toughen up and I'm maybe not tenacious enough? What are the things that you think help people make those steps forward to build that, more robust leadership style?
I think have great people around you, have people that you can call, join those networks. There's Rotaries, there's Chamber of Commerce, there's advisors, I always use those a lot. I always was a very big searching for more information. I didn't go to university. I haven't run a business before. I haven't even worked in an agency, and I've created one. So if we've got someone out there running, for example, a trade business, you may not have been in a business before like that before you started your own. So what we've got to go out is talk to other people who've done it so that we can learn quickly, because there aren't very many books on how to run a PR agency or how to run a plumbing company or how to run a building company or how to run a corner shop. So what we've got to do is go and talk to those people that have done it before, find out what works, what doesn't work, what they've learned, and then learn it in and then go from there. So there is no need to be alone. There is every help out there. I mean, this podcast for one. Fantastic. Gosh, I wish, I'd had advice like this. We didn't have podcasts when I was starting out. So read as much as you can, join networks that will help, and find people around you that you can call to and sound out, whether that's a good accountant, a good bank manager. And secondly, post-pandemic, I'd say look after your mental health, because we all know that if you're tired and run down, and you haven't had enough sleep and you're not fit and you're not eating well, then dealing with the pressures of small business is going to be super, super hard.
Yeah.
And therefore, what we need is to keep ourselves well. And that way, the issues are easier to deal with, and your bandwidth is bigger than if you're driving yourself into the ground. And most small business owners, me included, drive ourselves into the ground at some stage, and it's really not great. So if you can try, if you're in that spin cycle at the moment, feel like you can step off for a bit and look back at where you're at and what you can do to help yourself.
And just going on that, Sharon, I think, sometimes leaders or business owners may think they look weaker when they ask for help. Or they're not doing so well. They don't want to show that side of them. It is okay to ask for help, isn't it? It's not, it doesn't make you look weaker. It doesn't destroy your characteristic, your personal brand. It is just such a common thing to ask and reach out. And most people you ask for help will actually help. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I have rarely had help turned down when I've asked. And whenever we get a new client, we're a marketing and PR agency, the first thing we do is go out. If we've got a new client, the first thing we do is go out and research that industry or the competitors of that client, because what that does is it gives us a baseline to start from. So rather than start from fresh with a new client in a new industry, we've done all our homework and we've come up to speed on what works, what doesn't work, where those clients are seen, how they market, what their issues are, so that we go into that issue that relationship with a client knowing our stuff. It's no different with your own business. You need to do the research and have that network around you and be able to call upon other entrepreneurs and other people in similar businesses, or even outside of your own business. I actually love talking to people who aren't doing what I do, because I can learn from their examples and pull that into my own company.
And do you find there's a fear of failure out there, and you have to nudge people into, I don't know, practicing and learning new techniques? What are your stories around that journey of the individual?
I'm from England originally, and I think Australia has a very low tolerance of failure, which is a shame. For such a pioneering country, only a few hundred years old, I think we are rather afraid of failure. Mm-hmm. Whereas actually failure in North America, you almost get awards for failure. They almost, want to hear the failure story and then see how people pulled themselves back up again. Failure, you don't learn from the good times, you learn from the bad times. So I think it's a case of putting that failure aside. I think being a small business owner is waking up every morning and problem solving all day. And and being faced with things that you just don't know how to deal with. So failure, we've just got to put that aside. As long as you've got your we don't want financial failure to the extent where you lose one's home. So I would suggest that we want to protect you against that and have great emergency funds, banking advice, accounting advice, business loans, etc. So I wouldn't want anyone to be flippant about failure, but failure is not a crime. And also to close your doors and start again is not a crime. I haven't done that yet, and I'm 28 years and counting, but there have been plenty of times when I felt like I possibly or not could or should, but that risk was there.
And Sharon, you mentioned, this bouncing back and starting again. And also you mentioned before a characteristic of resilience. I just want to ask more about this resilience, because sometimes it's really hard to bounce back. Do you have any tips for actually building a more resilient team? As a small business owner is quite busy doing all these things, and yet they have to deal with issues every single day, like you mentioned, and solve them. Do you have any tips or tricks on how to make yourself resilient and even your team? Because it's one thing making yourself resilient, and then bringing your team on that journey with you could be tough.
Yes, look, I've had several experiences in the last few years that make me wonder how one does build resilience, because I think that there is a propensity for people to give up really easily these days. And I don't know why, because We've just been through a pandemic, but people will walk with their feet really quickly. And I don't know whether it's because we've gone soft as a nation, or whether we're the lucky country so long we don't know how to deal with hardship anymore, or whether there is a global move towards people being less resilient and less able to take hardship. But when you've got the core values aligned with your people, and you're the same people, and you're into a purpose, then you can combine and get through anything. I've had people with me through thick and thin for 22 years, 20 years, 18 years, 7 years, 5 years. You know, and then occasionally you get someone who just seems to go when everything's so promising for them, and you think, oh gosh, how sad. But you can take a horse to water, you can't make them drink, and you can't make people do stuff if they don't want to do it. And I think that as a country, I'd say call to arms. Anyone out there, you know, if people haven't got the resilience, well, let them go. Find someone who has. People who don't have resilience, who aren't on side, are destructive for your business. So while it might not be great when they walk with their feet, spend an awful lot of time trying to hold them to the culture and the environment. So let them go and find someone else.
And Sharon, when recruiting in small businesses, and it's one of the hardest things in business, I think, any shape or size, finding the next good employee. Again, any tips on how do you recruit the person who, how do you find that they have that resilience and that curiosity and those characteristics that you need?
Oh gosh, Roger, isn't it hard? I mean, I've hired people through hours of psychometric testing and recruitment agencies. And then my beautiful former director, who was with me for 7 years, we met for half an hour in Singapore airport. And we met for half an hour, and she ended up joining the company and staying for 7 years. No reference checks, no real reference checks, no psychometric testing, So, and then I've hired people through, you know, a whole load of tests who've ended up staying 3 months. So, I mean, if we all had the answer to that one, I think we'd be billionaires. But I do think what we do is we hire on core values. We hire people who are not necessarily like us, but believe in the same thing. And we listen to them to find out what they want and do our best to provide that environment or what it is that they want. Always asking around, by the way, just some practical tips. If you are looking to hire, LinkedIn, Facebook ads, asking your network, always best to get someone who knows somebody. Ads in local papers, really great. I got my first full-time employee from Sydney's Child, which was a parenting magazine, a free parenting magazine. And it wasn't full-time, it was a part-timer. And I've hired my part-time mums out of Sydney's Child with an ad that probably cost me, you know, $40 at the time. And then, of course, I mean, out of your competitors, within your competitors, I've never actually done this as a strategy, going after competitive staff. But certainly with trades, that's where people are sitting. And if they're not happy and you can create a better environment, then there's always that. The LinkedIn is a great place to find people.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
that's great, Sharon. You know, you mentioned just recently mentioned about bringing everyone on your journey with your purpose, like purpose, being driven with a purpose. Wanted to ask you more about that, because if, as a small business owner, you know your purpose. You know, let's say we're a local cafe, husband and wife team. We know how much we've invested in this business. We love it. We know our purpose. We want to make everyone happy. We want to make the best local coffee there is in the area. And yet we have a small team. We have, you know, a barista and a chef and maybe a wait staff. We're a small team. How have you got any tips for actually bringing everyone on the purpose? You know, as an owner, it's easier, you know your purpose, but then to bring your whole team on that purpose, you've invested a lot of money. resources. Do you have any tips on how to actually do that?
Look, days out, evenings out, meals, going to the pub, um, remembering their birthdays, anniversaries, just surprising people. With this afternoon, we just threw everyone donuts at 3:00. We just had donuts delivered. One of my team's just done a great job on a client. I had a bunch of flowers delivered to her this afternoon. Just random surprises. I've done the big kickoffs that are expensive off-sites. I've done all that, and then had come back from that, and people have left like a few months later. I mean, I don't think there is any equation to keep people other than do the best you can and always know that you can sleep at night because you took care of them as best you could.
I think that is brilliant advice, because it doesn't matter, because people, as business owners, you take it to heart. You've invested your time in your employees, and then suddenly they leave. And the first thing you think is, what have I done wrong? Right?
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily anything you do wrong. And the best piece of advice I was once given is, you're preparing them for their next job.
Yeah.
So invest in them, and that, you can't guarantee they'll stay on.
Yes. I really think we can't take it personally. We analyze our behavior, of course, and we learn and we grow from that. But I've long learned, 28 years, that you just can't please everybody all the time, and that there is a period where the universe says they're going to be with you, and when that's over, you just have to deal with it and find their replacement. And one has to retain the recognition that you are a director of your company. You're not a welfare unit, and you're not a charity, and you're not counseling line. So while you'll be all of those things at some point, your primary responsibility is as a director to your company and your brand. So if someone is happy to go, there'll usually be a reason. Let them go, because what you've got to do is do what's right for your company, and you are a director of your company. And that comes with lots of responsibilities and governance. And if people don't want to be on your journey, let them go. There's always a reason why they've moved on. And usually it's because someone better is waiting around the corner.
I think there's also the notion of celebrating the time they had with you and turning something that might end a bit negatively into being, well, that's fine. We had Roger for 4 years, 4 great years. See you later.
And I am so proud, Roger, that we have 1,600, that's 1,600 alumni, Taurus alumni out in the world, now head of companies, head of marketing departments who came through Taurus. And I often meet up with them for coffee. I could reach out to pretty much all of them for a testimonial or a catch up or a referral. And they still remember the things that they were taught when they were at this business. Yeah. And that is something that, on my deathbed, I'm not going to remember the years I had with Taurus. I'm going to remember the people I grew. And that is my proudest moment. So for for all the negativity we just talked about, people leaving. Oh no, my website, my mantra, I build people, brands, and businesses, and the people part is first.
It's an interesting point, Sharon, because you talked about the network before. We were just talking about recruitment. I do think the network is incredibly powerful for so much more. As you said, your own well-being, also business opportunities, the people that you know who know other people that bring you the next customer. So I'm sure you're a supreme networker as well. Any guidance there on how to cultivate the network?
Well, networking is always a phrase and a word that I don't really like much, because I'm just an extrovert. So I love people and I love being around people and I get energy from people. Some people get energy from being alone. I like being alone too, but I've always just loved people and being with people and spending time with people. So, and also I was new to Australia 28 years ago. And I wanted to get out and meet people. We didn't know anybody here. My husband and I, we didn't have any friends here. So I wanted to go out and meet people. And of course, the minute you meet like-minded people, for anyone going out to business networks or events, you usually only connect with the people that you want to connect with. You don't, can move on quickly from people that aren't your people. And so they will always support, help you, refer you, nurture you if they're your tribe. And I think that's very important, because being the leader or entrepreneur or founder of a business is really lonely, and it's really tough.
Yeah.
I always say there's nothing small about small business.
Oh, that's a good one. There is nothing small. I agree.
There is nothing.
I'm sure you do too, Roger.
If anybody else is out there in small business, listening, and I know you are, you are amongst the bravest, and you are amongst those that should be revered and saluted more than anybody. And by the way, we're the backbone of Australia.
Yeah.
We've got the mines, and we dig stuff out of the ground, although they're trying to stop us do that. And then we've got small business. We are the people. I am my 28 years have paid people's mortgages, have looked after them. That's what small business is. So we're pat yourselves on your back out there. We're the real deal.
Excellent.
Absolutely. And I do want to, talking about reinventing or being a leader in 2023, technological advancements, automation, there's been so much talk about Chat GPT. We're seeing so much more AI happening. How, from a leader's perspective, with all this happening, my question is, how do we maintain this human touch in our leadership style? If we're kind of going, leaders are moving towards AI. The whole world is. It is going to disrupt. We can say no to whatever we want now, but it is slowly creeping in. Maintaining that human touch, how important is it to actually be a successful leader?
Yeah. Well, my business tends to work with tech companies. So we are the agency for entrepreneurs. And when we started out with tech entrepreneurs, now we're dealing with people cross industry, because of course it's now biotech, edutech, health tech. So everything is tech. And I don't think we need to be frightened of tech. It's going to happen. But I do know we have never been able to build a computer that has human empathy. And so that human intelligence and that the ability to be able to not show emotion, but actually to decipher emotion is not done well by tech. So whatever the technology that comes into businesses, as leaders, we have the ability to bring an interpretation of emotion and to be able to read the signs that technology can't. And I think that says to us as leaders, your job is to see through process and see through governance and see through day to day and be able to spot what's going on a human level. And gut instinct is really powerful. So if your gut says to you on a day that things aren't right about something, you can bet your bottom dollar your gut's going to be right. Gut instinct is right. So if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. So I would suggest that as leaders, we've got to keep empathy front and center. And the other thing is grace. I don't know about you, but lots of people are angry out there at the moment, and they're operating at their limit. We're seeing it a lot with people in our network. And therefore, I think we just need to find a moment of grace and treat people with not just a little more empathy, but a bit of grace.
Yeah, what about the notion of retaining authenticity, something with all the Chat GPT stuff swirling around? And, I do worry about this, what's coming out at the end of my career. But for young ones, I see a real importance to hang on to that, even if all the technology's helping you in many other ways with the workflow or how you process or execute something for a customer. How do you hang on to authenticity?
Well, you're asking the founder of an agency called No Bull. So we're about as authentic as you can get. I think that, remember we had the horses replaced by trains, we had my fax machine, which I used when I started issuing press releases, replaced by laptops and computers and the internet. We can't fight it. It's going to happen. So what we've got to do is find ways to differentiate. And and interpersonal human skills, studying psychology and understanding how humans work, and being more able to decipher human behavior is probably one of the big strong points. We're not in the world now that I grew up in, where children were seen and not heard, or you're not your personal sway, your sexual sway, or your your gender and all that sort of stuff. When I was growing up, there was no discussion about that. And now we're having those conversations, and we've got to be intelligent, whether we agree or not. We've got to be intelligent and empathetic and graceful about how we have those conversations. And that is what's going to see us through as leaders. Not always easy, by the way, when you've had a big day and you're tired and things haven't gone well, and you feel short-tempered, and one has to be very, very careful and controlled, and remember that you are in a leadership position.
It's a great way of looking at it. I'm going to switch the conversation to personal brand, Sharon, because I know that at Taurus Marketing, personal brand is something that you do day in and day out. So that everyone understands, before we go into this discussion, can you just explain to the listeners what exactly is personal brand? Before we discuss how important and all that and the characteristics and everything, just simply, what is it?
Yeah, so really simple. A personal brand is who you are and what you look like and how you come across to others. And unfortunately, we live in a world where it takes about 30 seconds for someone to make a judgment on you. So if I have a builder, plumber, painter, electrician, gardener come to my home and I open the door, I have made a judgment within probably 5 to 30 seconds on that individual. And the perception is going to be really hard to change in that first 30 seconds, unless that individual has thought about how they are going to greet me and how that conversation is, an appearance, and what they do is going to have an impact on me. So personal brand is nothing scary. It's just about who you are and how you present yourself and how you want to be perceived by others. And it's actually being conscious of that and rolling your day and how you behave out on purpose and with purpose rather than by accident. And if you don't do that, you open your competitors to take your place. Of those competitors who are conscious of their personal brand, you're allowing them to take your business. So it's being yourself with purpose and understanding that you are the captain of your personal brand, whether you like it or not. Just a smile, just someone being clean, someone saying hello before they launch into, someone taking their shoes off before they enter your home. Simple. I've been in marketing and comms all my life. The simple things are the things that work.
Yeah. And then personal and professional brand, would you say they are the same, or do we keep them separate? So for everyone listening, when we're talking about personal, we obviously talk about ourselves, but then we've got professional. Some believe they're intertwined. Some believe they're to be kept separate. What's your view on that, Sharon?
I believe a personal brand is being your authentic self. So there is no difference between professional and personal. I mean, when I'm at home on my own personally, I might have tracksuit on and not quite look as put together as I do at the moment, but I'm still the same human and I'm just relaxing. But and by the way, I'd rather be at the beach in flip-flops than dressed up like this. That's my natural place to be. But one has to be fit for purpose to deliver the services that you are going to deliver. So no, absolutely one and the same. And to make that even more clear, if you came to me as a tradie to my home and were polite and wonderful, and yet I saw you in the back of, in front of your garden kicking a dog or something, that's not what you presented to me. And it would absolutely, the behaviors would not match. So they are one and the same. And our standards and core values have to roll out personally and professionally. Doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, by the way. None of us are perfect. But I think that your personal brand is something you really have to consider about going back to the fact that you're a director and leader of your company.
I think for a lot of small business leaders, there's a low level of understanding that they're being watched all the time.
Yeah.
And certainly with my clients, I'm helping them understand how they behave with their employees is almost more important than how they interact with their customers, because they can switch. And yeah, I don't know. Have you seen conflict in that regard?
Well, I think that's all in line with changing times, isn't it? I mean, the standards of behavior we accepted years ago are now no longer acceptable, and therefore we must and have to change with the times, and be adaptable to how we behave in the workplace and at home, and have our businesses evolve to reflect those changes. So that's one of the most important things about being able to be in business for a long time, that you can show that you've adapted and been able to change with the times. So no, Natalie, I'm an absolute endorser of personal brand, but not because I think, we should be all promoting ourselves. It's that we need to acknowledge that as a leader of our brand, of our company, we've got to behave with purpose.
And look, I completely agree with that, Sharon. And, when I first started my business 7 years ago, I remember I had 2 younger children then. And when I started, I thought, oh, there's no way they're going to take me seriously. A mother of 2 young children, they're going to think I can't work long hours, all those things. So I actually divided my professional and my personal brand. And let me tell you, it was exhausting, because for a good year and a half while I started, no one knew that I had 2 children until I proved that I could make it work. And then when I did tell everyone, when I combined the 2, they're like, wow, you have children. And now, once you align it and you've got your purpose, like what you've discussed, it just comes naturally. But until you actually build that brand and have a purpose, it can be exhausting.
Yeah, I agree. And hats off to working mothers and working fathers out there, single working fathers. Hats off to parents. I mean, gosh, how did we do it? Mine are all grown up now. I don't know. I don't know how I did it. I don't know how they've put up with me. And, they are absolutely extraordinary humans. But I said to them when they were teenagers, I think, I'm going to give you a psychiatrist appointment and a round the world ticket when you get to 18 to you can just fix everything that I've done.
I'm sure there's a lot of teamwork involved.
Absolutely.
And mine are beautiful. I love them to pieces. They're my reason.
Look, Sharon, if we were to let's use an example of a small business owner. So in this example, let's use a restaurant owner. So for those restaurant owners that are listening in at the moment, what are some simple tips? They're loving what we're talking about, but they're not quite sure about their personal brand. If we were talking to a restaurant owner, what are some simple things they could be doing to work on their personal brand?
Okay, so restaurant, and I work with a couple of restaurants. Personal brand LinkedIn, so straight onto LinkedIn, straight onto local community publications, because you want to attract local residents to your restaurant or cafe. Humor works great. If you're a local restaurant or cafe, humor works beautifully. Great branding, make signage clear. Local community radio, local papers, local schools, local churches, special offers, like, or not special offers, but themed nights, like one we're working with at the moment has just done a whiskey and steak night, does coffee and crumpets for a set fee certain times in the morning to get the traffic in through the doors early. PR, I'm a big public relations advocate. With my company's in the media. I'm in the media, every week, because I believe PR builds a brand. So today we just delivered one of our lovely restaurants who's a client coverage in a publication that is talking about the beautiful fit out that they've done. We've got them, in Time Out and those publications that are good food guides and things like that. So yeah, lovely things to do if you're a restaurant. I mean, stand on the street corner and hand out flyers, draw drops into the local area. Elegant if you're elegant, friendly if you're friendly, if you're a relaxed cafe, relaxed. Those things all work. Promotions around Mother's Day, Easter, special occasions like that always work too.
There is so much businesses can take away from that, for sure.
Yeah, good geographical locations so that when someone walks past, they are geographically targeted on Facebook ads. Just so many lovely things you can do with local businesses. And pretty much everything I've just said there, you can do as a tradie, as a plumber, as an electrician. I still say fridge magnets are great. Door drops, when you're doing a job in a house, drop 5 houses either side. So you're in the area. Do they need anything? While you're eating, lunch, while you're having your sandwich, walk up and down, drop the leaflets in. Return work, database marketing. Every restaurant should have a database of its customers so that it can invite them back. Newsletters. Yep, lovely, quick, simple ideas.
Any restaurant owners listening in on this are going to be happy that I asked that question. Sorry, Roger.
Natalie, that outpouring of creative ideas, which are all we get that, but to get a small business to even whiteboard or do the creative things, I personally find quite a challenge to nudge them into that, freeing up the time to explore what could be different. I mean, again, any stories around that, Sharon?
Yeah, so every small business should read the E-Myth, the book, The E-Myth, and that it's about a baker's, and it teaches you that the baker is a baker. He bakes bread, but when he bakes bread, he has to then buy the ingredients, make sure he's got enough stock. He's got to open the shop. He's got to clean it. He's got to staff it. And they're not the skills of a baker. So what you have to do as a business owner is work out what you're good at and what you're not good at, and find people who are better at that thing, quicker and more cost effective than the time it would take you to do it. And you lose money in your business because you're not doing what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And look, that's a tough one because I've been there. I was a startup, remember? So I've had to find people to help me. But the minute you start finding, some people will help you with no charge. People will back you and help you. That's what the network is. People like to lift other people if they're your tribe. I mean, it's not often in life that we don't have to pay for things, but certainly our network introduces us to people who will lift us and help us. And if you want help on social media, then local graduates and school leavers are the best.
Excellent. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't think of that one. When we talk about personal brand, I always think about appearance, and yet we've spoken to tradies especially find it hard. They would say, but, we work in a dirty job, or, we get dirty. So keeping ourselves looking clean is quite difficult. Yet we recently had some work done by a plumbing business, and I clearly remember, and I forgot that they even took their shoes off at the front door until you shared a story before, Sharon, but they took their shoes off at the front door when they arrived. We had a leaking toilet. They took their shoes off. Their uniforms were so clean. They were ironed. I almost went, oh my goodness, like, you just expect it to be dirty. They have quite a dirty job. After they finished, they cleaned down their area. They explained everything that they did. And it was just this phenomenal brand that they left. And I would recommend them to everyone just based on how they presented themselves. Now, I'm sure there's the tradies listening in now that go, but we can't do that. How important do you think, Sharon, this appearance, when you turn up to a job looking professional, how important is that even for tradies themselves?
Yeah. Look, none of what you've just said costs any money. To be clean and to be polite and to take your shoes off and to clean up after you does not cost money. It's just manners and it's just clever. So I would suggest any tradie out there who says, oh, how do I stay clean? Well, have 2 pairs of overalls in the truck and change at 12 and change at 3. And it means a bit more washing, but like this is really simple answers. And I do have this story when I speak, and I'm on a stage and I'm dressed up in suits and stuff, which is what I have to be dressed like for my market. You have to be fit for purpose for the job. So if you were a builder on a building site, you would not look like me. You would have to have, and I ask people to go through everything you'd have to have, from the boots to the high vis to the hat to the gloves to the socks to the everything. And then you come back to a corporate practitioner like me, and I unfortunately have got to be dressed in, what I have to be, high heels or what. Neither of those two brands would look good in the other person's environment. If I walked onto a building site dressed in a suit, high heels, and pencil skirt, I would look ridiculous. My brand would be shot because they'd just go, you really don't get it. And I wouldn't get it. Likewise, if you walk into a corporate boardroom dressed as a builder, you're out of place. So it's not about actually even being dressed in a certain way. It's about being fit for purpose, and cleanliness has got to be base. In the corporate world, in the world we're living, I mean, there is no excuse to be dirty. So being clean just means they change their overalls a couple of times a day. And I love the things that you just pointed out, Natalie. They cost nothing, and tradies can learn so much and gain so much by just being a community member and helping people change a light bulb or sweep a path or help someone. I mean, how many times do you get that these days? And it is so simple. Immediately you're talking about really basic human things that give that brand a lift. Simple things.
Yeah, well, automatically, if someone says, they need a plumber, I'm like, oh, I know someone, definitely. Like, it's just, they've left this lasting impression. And like you said, having a change of clothes in the van, it doesn't cost, it's just simple, right? It just, there's no excuse. I think it's a brilliant way for personal branding and how to build it.
And of course, the reverse was a negative experience, isn't it, Sharon?
Yeah.
Yes.
If it's poor, the stories multiply, don't they?
Well, you don't call them back, do you? And, it's always easier to go back to a customer than it is to find a new one. So we do have to nurture our customers really well.
And what about actually, with creating personal brands? But, there's lots of plumbers out there. There's lots of electricians out there. There's lots of restaurants. There's cafe owners. What about creating a brand that sets us apart from our competitors? How have you got any tricks on how to actually do that? Because I'm assuming everyone's trying to build some sort of personal brand. But how do we differentiate ours from others?
Well, you're talking to someone who runs an agency, marketing and PR agency, and I think there's 90 independently owned agencies in Sydney. So I'm in a highly competitive space. But not everybody will like me, and not everybody wants to work with me, and not everybody will like a particular tradie or a plumber. You kind of meld and gel with your tribe. And I don't want people who don't want to work with me anyway. I want the people who do want to work with me. I want to attract like. So it's okay to create a brand and say who you are with purpose, because then you can get people will easily reject you that don't like you. And the ones that do want to be with you will come and be with you. So the plumbers and tradies out there have just got to be the same. They will either brand their trucks or they won't. They'll either do certain things or they won't. And they will attract their tribe by being who they are, because we tend to want to hang out with people like us. So, it's not everybody that is going to be your client or want to do work with you.
And that's okay. And I think that's what people need to realize. It is very competitive. And as long as it sounds like as long as you create an honest personal brand, you will attract the right customers that will fulfill your purpose.
That's what you want. You want an easy life.
Yeah. What about this, Sharon? I've taken this from your website. So Taurus Marketing, you are the captain of your personal brand. Stay relevant, keep reinventing. What does that mean?
Natalie, that means that you can't rest on your laurels, and you've got to keep looking at what is out there and come up with something new. And all the time I'm thinking about how things are changing and how we can do things better. And even, I mean, I'm sitting behind our logo. We've just changed our logo and we're announcing it on Wednesday. So that's in a few days' time. And I just think Taurus is now not the same company it was when we started. And therefore, we needed to adapt with the times and make it look where it is, let the logo catch up to where we're at. So whether it's changing your brand, whether it's renaming your products and services, whether it's coming up with new products and services, whether it's changing the colors or changing your greeting message, your telephone answering machine message when people call you, it's good to keep up with your market and keep up with what people want, and keep adapting, because we're nimble, we can do it. We're the SMBs, we can make a change. If you're head of a big bank, geez, what can you change? But we're the ones that are exciting and fluid and agile, and we can actually write our own shows and write our own future. So yeah, being adaptive and innovative is really key.
And Sharon, do you find that's an intuitive thing for you as a leader, but maybe some clients need to constantly listen to feedback from the customer and have a sort of process around that so that they can adapt?
Absolutely right, Roger. There's people that will be open to change and people that are not. By the way, not everybody should change at any time. We don't want change just for the sake of change. My logo has been the same for 28 years. But now I've got a new one. It doesn't mean that 10 years ago I should have changed the logo, or every year do I look at the brand. I mean, actually every year I do look at the brand. But I think it's a case of, oh gosh, when you've been in business 28 years, you get bored unless you change things up. And I think people out there get exhausted, running your own business. If you're running your own business, you're probably exhausted. Or you've known exhaustion, or you've known weariness, and you've known lots of things: exhilaration, pride, ego, success. So I think we want to look at the opportunities to change, and be free to make the decision not to if it's not relevant.
One of the phrases I use, is if there are hard days work which sort of drain you, and then there are hard days work like some of these change and opportunity things, which can be actually energizing, even though you've put in a full 9-10 hours or whatever, but you're feeling really good about that work rather than drained. So I always encourage businesses it is that shining light, that place you want to go to that can energize you and lift you with all the hard work that's going on. Yeah.
Well, that's right, Roger. We've got to love what we do, haven't we? Plenty of people in jobs they hate.
Yeah.
Oh, we hear that too, definitely. I'm looking at the time, but I'm going to squeeze in one more question because, I mean, Sharon, we can ask you 1,000 questions, but I want to touch on social media and personal brand. Obviously, social media plays such an important role today. How important is that for personal branding? Is it something to build a personal brand? Do we have to be on social media? So I'm a small business owner. Now I'm going to be a hairdresser. I'm a hairdresser. I don't have social media. Do I need social media, Sharon?
Oh, yes, you do. So, gosh, a hairdresser is about the best example of all of them. I mean, a hairdresser, you want to be on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram will be the place you have to be. You will need a website. You can probably book through your website. So, yes, you do. And it's another tool. When I was starting out, we just had the fax machine and post. Then we got the internet. We've got apps. Then we've got social media. It's another tool. It's another exciting tool to be able to get new customers. So yes, absolutely you do. And again, you just need a young person. They're fabulous at it. Young person with strategy. So just as long as you've got the business strategy, as long as they know that the reason this exists is to actually make money, not just look beautiful, then, and as long as you're key messaged and you've got a KPI around your social media and you treat it like a business tool, which it is, then yeah, great.
Okay. Sharon, it's been wonderful to spend 58 minutes or so with you. I'm going to take on the challenging job of trying to summarize some of the wonderful insights that you've given to us and the audience. And forgive me if I don't do it justice, but I'll give it a good go here. I mean, this is Sharon, the intrepid traveler, grabbed the rucksack with her partner and has worked her way around the world. And like many people, landed in Australia and chose to stay and carved out a really good niche in a competitive market. So it's been great to listen to your stories. We've heard about the importance of resilience and tenacity and the importance of building a good team of people around you, or at least having a network of people to lean on, because we all know that it is lonely leading a business. We've touched upon the importance of mental well-being, and we could probably spend a whole other hour on that, but we do know that the importance of good sleep, being energized and being able to work on the complex and difficult things in the business is absolutely paramount, both for the individual and for the loved ones around them. Alignment to core values, again, something that I think everybody should take away. Have you got alignment? If you don't, then try and build it and have those real foundations of values in a business. And, wonderful tips around just the importance of small things. The small gestures and things that you do to celebrate and say thank you to your team, even to your customers, is gold, really. And it's not expensive, and it doesn't usually take a lot of time. Don't forget the role you have as a director in a business. I think that was a really, really good insight. And I've got a trademark phrase here, which is there's nothing small about small businesses. So I reckon that you should build that into your playbook somehow, Sharon. Empathy and grace, really important takeaway for me. I would not instinctively have used or shared the word grace. And I think that's a wonderful thing for people just to dwell on and absorb. And whilst retaining this sort of measured and controlled approach to how we go around leading the business. And then the second half really of our discussion was around the personal brand. Perception is reality. People take a very quick view and judgment of you, me, the individual, how they look, talk, and act. So, perception is reality, and that the criticality of being self-aware as a leader in the business. And again, this notion of being yourself with purpose, and a purpose is a really important word for people to sort of underline and keep looking back at. And then you have to be adaptable. We spoke at length about how that is it's a non-negotiable. If people do not change with the times as the markets change and their customers do new and different things, and you will obviously have gleaned all of these wonderful insights through the faster moving tech side of the economy. Many of the people out there that we work with are in potentially slightly less dynamic, but nevertheless businesses all morph over time. A lot of things around developing personal brand. The book E-Myth, I think it's a book that we have talked about, Natalie, and promoted. It is a well worth read. And again, thank you for highlighting that for us. And then, just this whole notion of reinvention and adapting. I think those are the real takeaways for me, Sharon. I hope I haven't missed anything out. We all know the social media juggernauts running along, and I love your again tips around grabbing the young people. And it doesn't always have to cost a lot of money. If they're aligned and understand your business, they can bring things fast that help you make a difference out there. So thank you very much for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you and quizzing you. And over to you, Natalie.
Wonderful wrap up, Roger, by the way. Sharon, it has been a pleasure chatting to you. There are so many tips in there. And even though we've specified specific businesses, everyone can learn from every little tip that you've shared there, because they're applicable to whatever business you are. I think small, medium, large, corporate, everyone can take something away from there. So thank you so much, Sharon.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And oh my goodness, Roger, I thought that wrap up was amazing. Thank you for listening so hard for that 58 minutes. You're amazing.
Writing.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye, everyone.